The restaurant went silent. All eyes locked on the young black waitress, Maya, as she raised her hands, not to protest, not to serve, but to sign. Her fingers moved gracefully in the quiet air. "Welcome. Can I help you?" The old man in front of her, a frail, silver-haired visitor with kind but weary eyes, froze. For the first time that day, someone spoke his language. And at the far end of the room, a powerful billionaire CEO, accustomed to mocking both workers and customers alike, dropped his fork and stared. His empire would never be the same again. What happened next shocked everyone in that restaurant and changed Maya's life forever. Maya was no stranger to hardship. At just 23, she worked double shifts at a bustling city restaurant, wearing the same worn-out shoes every day. Customers barely noticed her. Some mocked her. Even her boss, Mr. Whitmore, the kind of man who believed wealth gave him the right to belittle anyone beneath him, saw her as replaceable. But what they didn't know was that Maya carried a hidden strength, a secret skill learned in long, quiet evenings with her younger brother, who was born deaf. Through patience, love, and sacrifice, she mastered sign language. It was never meant to impress anyone. It was simply how she showed her brother he mattered. And one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, that secret would collide with destiny. The bell above the door jingled, and in shuffled an elderly man with soft, tired eyes. He walked slowly, holding a cane. His suit, though old and frayed, carried a quiet dignity. But when the hostess tried to speak to him, he didn't respond. He simply looked confused. Some customers laughed, others whispered, and from the corner booth, Mr. Whitmore smirked cruelly. "Probably doesn't even belong here," he muttered to his friends. "Look at him, he can't hear a word." The old man lowered his head in shame. That's when Maya stepped forward. Her heart raced as she approached him. She could feel everyone's eyes on her, waiting for her to make a fool of herself. But instead of raising her voice or repeating herself like so many impatient people did, Maya raised her hands. Her fingers moved softly, beautifully. "Hello. Welcome. Can I help you?" The old man's head shot up, his cloudy eyes filled with sudden light. His lips trembled as he signed back, slowly, shakily. You know sign?" The restaurant went silent. Forks paused midair. Even laughter stopped. And in the corner booth, Mr. Whitmore's smirk vanished. Maya guided the man to a table, signing patiently as he ordered, making sure he felt respected. Customers whispered in awe. Some clapped quietly. But Richard Whitmore, the billionaire CEO who had treated people like tools, useful or useless, and here was one of his own waitresses proving in silence that humanity was worth more than all his money. What Richard didn't know was that this old man wasn't just another diner. He was someone who held the power to turn his entire world upside down. As the old man ate in peace, communicating freely with Maya, Richard couldn't take his eyes off them. His arrogance clashed with confusion, with something deeper, fear. Because the old man had come with a purpose, and by treating him with kindness, Maya had just unlocked a secret that Richard desperately wanted to keep buried. And when the truth was revealed, the waitress everyone underestimated would hold the fate of a billionaire in her hands.
Richard Whitmore couldn't eat. His hand trembled around the glass of wine, the ice clinking nervously. He watched the waitress, that waitress, the one he barely paid above minimum wage, speak fluently with the old man in a language he never thought mattered. And the way the man's tired face lit up, Richard recognized something in it, something that sent a shiver down his spine. But it wasn't just familiarity, it was danger. Around the restaurant, murmurs grew. Customers spoke in hushed awe. Some even pulled out their phones, recording snippets of Maya patiently signing, her hands flowing with grace. "Who is she?" a woman whispered. "I didn't know she could do that," another said. But the loudest sound was Richard's silence, because he knew that man. Years ago, when he was climbing the corporate ladder, desperate to bury his humble beginnings, Richard had walked away from family, from people who reminded him of a life he wanted to erase. And the old man now smiling at Maya was none other than his estranged uncle, the man who raised him after his father died, the man he abandoned once wealth had crowned him. Maya didn't know any of this. To her, he was just a lonely diner who finally felt seen. She leaned closer, her hands moving gently. "How are you today?" she signed. The old man chuckled, shaking his head in disbelief. "Better now, thank you. Most people, they ignore me or laugh. But you remind me of someone I used to know." Maya smiled warmly, unaware of the irony hanging in the air. And from across the room, Richard felt a bead of sweat trail down his neck. For the first time in years, Richard wasn't in charge of the room. The spotlight wasn't on him. It was on a young black waitress, someone he thought invisible. The irony cut deeper with every passing second. The same man Richard abandoned had now found comfort in the very person Richard dismissed. Trying to reassert control, Richard slammed his glass down, startling everyone. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "Why is everyone staring? It's just some hand-waving nonsense." The room froze. Gasps echoed. Maya's face fell. The old man's smile faded, replaced with disappointment. And suddenly, the cameras that had been recording turned toward Richard. Maya straightened her shoulders. For years, she had swallowed her voice, endured insults, smiled through mistreatment. But not today. Not with someone vulnerable watching her for strength. She looked Richard square in the eye. "This isn't nonsense," she said firmly, her voice steady. "It's a language, a bridge. And it means more than all the money in the world." A hush swept through the restaurant. Customers nodded. Some clapped softly. And Richard's uncle? His eyes welled with tears. For the first time in a long time, he felt pride. But as Richard's face twisted with fury, he realized the cameras hadn't just caught Maya's courage. They had caught his cruelty. By the end of the night, the world would see him for who he truly was. And when the truth hit the headlines, Maya's life would never be the same.
By sunrise, the video had exploded across social media. Millions had watched Maya gently sign in with the old man, and then gasped in outrage as Richard, the untouchable billionaire, dismissed it as hand-waving nonsense. One caption on TikTok read, "Compassion versus arrogance, you decide." The internet had already decided. Comments poured in. "This young woman deserves the world. How could a CEO be so cold? This is exactly why the rich can't be trusted." News anchors replayed the clip on morning shows. Activists praised Maya as a voice for the unheard. Disability advocacy groups hailed her as a hero. Meanwhile, Richard Whitmore's PR team was in crisis mode. His company's stock dipped, shareholders demanded answers, and hashtags like "Cancel Whitmore" and "Maya Speaks" trended worldwide. The man who once prided himself on controlling every narrative was suddenly powerless. At the diner, Maya sat nervously with her manager, her phone buzzing nonstop. She never wanted fame. She just wanted to treat people with kindness. But kindness had turned into a movement. The old man, Richard's uncle, returned the next day holding her hand with gratitude. "You gave me back my dignity," he signed. "Don't let anyone take that from you." Tears filled Maya's eyes. She didn't know her life was about to change forever. Meanwhile, Richard paced inside his glass-walled office, his empire trembling beneath him. His assistant read the headlines aloud. Whitmore CEO ridicules sign language in public outburst. Waitress becomes internet sensation overnight. Richard's fists clenched. She thinks she can humiliate me? She's nobody. I'll make sure she regrets this. But what Richard didn't know was that the old man he abandoned was preparing to speak publicly. At that very moment, Richard's uncle sat in front of a news camera. With Maya by his side to interpret his signs, he revealed a truth the world had never heard, that he had raised Richard after his father's death, that he had sacrificed everything to put Richard through school, and that the moment Richard became wealthy, he erased his uncle from his life. The revelation hit the airwaves like a bombshell. The billionaire who once towered above the world was suddenly the villain of every headline. And the waitress he dismissed as nobody, she had become his greatest threat. But just as the storm raged at its peak, an invitation arrived for Maya, a prestigious gala, a stage she never expected, and a confrontation with Richard Whitmore that would shake the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Richard Whitmore. The ballroom erupted in applause as the billionaire CEO strutted onto the stage, his arrogance untouched by scandal, or so it seemed. But in the back of the room, Maya stood frozen, clutching the golden invitation card she never thought she'd hold. Tonight, their worlds would collide in front of the nation's most powerful eyes. The gala sparkled with chandeliers, designer gowns, and champagne flutes, a playground for the wealthy. But when Maya entered, whispers spread. That's the waitress from the video. Isn't she the one who signed with the old man? Phones discreetly pointed at her. Maya, in a simple, borrowed dress, felt out of place. Yet her courage held her tall. Richard adjusted his cufflinks, smirking at the crowd. Despite recent noise, I stand before you tonight as proof that strength and wealth cannot be shaken by baseless gossip. He raised his glass, waiting for applause, but the silence was heavy. Because at that moment, Maya stepped forward. Maya Johnson, the host announced, reading the special invitation. Honored guest of the evening. Gasps echoed. Richard's face paled. Maya walked slowly to the stage. With every step, the tension tightened. She turned to the crowd and began to speak. I was just doing my job when I met a man who had been ignored for too long. A man who wasn't treated with the respect he deserved, even by his own family. Her voice shook, but her conviction cut through the hall like a blade. She lifted the microphone higher. That man was Richard Whitmore's uncle. The room erupted. Journalists scrambled for their pens. Richard's jaw clenched, fury in his eyes. At that moment, the old man himself entered. Guided by aides, he raised his hand and began signing. Maya translated. I gave everything I had to raise this boy. I believed wealth would make him generous. Instead, it made him cruel. The groom gasped. Cameras flashed. Richard's empire crumbled not in boardrooms, but under the spotlight of truth. Security whispered into earpieces. Shareholders left their seats. The media storm raged live. And for the first time, Richard stood small. Maya, the waitress he called nobody, had the entire room on her side. And then came the final blow. The old man's lawyer stepped up, papers in hand. Effective immediately, Richard Whitmore's uncle is reclaiming the family trust. The man you cheer for tonight no longer owns the company he boasts about. The crowd erupted in thunderous applause. Richard staggered, speechless. And Maya? She stood firm, her dignity intact. That night, the underdog didn't just rise, she proved that compassion is stronger than arrogance, and truth louder than power. But as the cameras followed Maya out of the gala, a black limousine pulled up. Inside sat a mysterious figure, watching her closely. And with a chilling smile, he whispered, "She has no idea what's coming next."